In the heart of the Niger Delta, where the rivers twist and curl like the braids of a young maiden, there was a small Ijaw fishing village. The people there lived by the water, ate from the water, prayed to the water, and sang songs that floated over the tides at night. Among these people lived a poor fisherman named Tamuno. His canoe was old, patched so many times that it looked more like a floating riddle than a boat. His nets were thin and torn, his hands calloused from years of labor, and his belly never quite full. Every morning, Tamuno rose before the sun, when the air was still cool and the river whispered quietly in the dark. He would paddle out alone, humming the same song his late father used to sing. "Opuwari, bring the fish, bring the blessings, let the nets be heavy today." But most days, Tamuno's nets came back almost empty. The river seemed to mock him. One morning, when the mist still hugged the surface of the water, Tamuno threw his net into the river as he had always done. He waited. The net tugged harder than usual, as though it had caught something far larger than any fish he had seen. "Ah!" Tamuno shouted, muscles straining as he pulled. His canoe rocked dangerously, nearly tipping him into the river. When he finally dragged the net into the boat, his eyes widened. It was no ordinary fish. In his net lay a creature unlike anything he had ever seen. She had the face and form of a woman, but her body glistened with shimmering scales, and where her legs should have been was a long, powerful tail that slapped the wood of the canoe with a sharp crack. Her skin was dark as river stones after the rain, glowing under the morning light, and her hair was braided with beads that clinked softly like cowries. A mermaid! Tamuno's heart pounded in his chest. He had heard the old stories the elders told around the fire, tales of mamiwata, water spirits, who could bless or curse, who could bring fortune or drag a man's soul beneath the waves forever. The mermaid struggled in his net, her eyes flashing with both fear and fury. She said, "Let me go," her voice soft but carrying the weight of thunder. Tamuno's hands trembled. His mind told him to hold on. This was a spirit, maybe a treasure, maybe the source of wealth that had always escaped him. But his heart softened when he saw her tears. Slowly, he untangled the net and let her slip back into the water. She paused before diving under, her eyes fixed on him. "You freed me," she whispered. "Why?" Tamuno swallowed. "Because you are not fish, and I am not a wicked man." The mermaid tilted her head, studying him, then vanished beneath the water with a flick of her tail. For days after that, Tamuno could not sleep. He kept replaying the moment in his mind. Had he imagined it? Did the river trick his eyes? But one evening, as the sun bled into the horizon and painted the water with fire, he heard a splash near his canoe. There she was again, the mermaid. She floated lazily, her beads glittering in the fading light. "You came back," Tamuno whispered. "I had to see the man who set me free," she replied, her lips curling into a smile. From then on, she began to visit him often. At first, they spoke cautiously, like strangers testing the water. She asked about the land people, about his life, about why he was so poor yet still so kind. He asked her about the river, about her people, about the world beneath the water that he could never see. They laughed together. They shared secrets. Slowly, their hearts began to beat for one another. Tamuno no longer fished with despair. His canoe, once lonely, now carried laughter. One evening, the mermaid swam closer to his canoe and held something out to him. In her hand were pearls, smooth, glowing like drops of the moon. She said, "Take these." Tamuno gasped. But they are too much." She replied, "They are nothing to me, but for you, they will change everything." And she was right. When Tamuno brought the pearls back to the village, the people stared in awe. The traders paid him fortunes he had never dreamed of. In days, his hut grew into a house. His torn nets were replaced with new ones, his patch canoe replaced with the strongest boat in the village. The poor fisherman who once came home with empty hands was now the richest man in the land. It did not take long before the news of Tamuno's wealth reached the ears of the village king. The king summoned him to the palace, a place Tamuno had only ever seen from afar. Its walls gleamed with brass, and the air smelled of palm oil and spices. "Tamuno," the king said, his voice deep and heavy, "you were once poor, but now your wealth surpasses even the chiefs. How?" Tamuno bowed low. He dared not speak of the mermaid. "The river has blessed me, my king. My nets are full now, and fortune smiles on me." The king stroked his beard, eyes narrowing. "A man like you should not live like a common fisherman. From today, you will serve as my assistant." Gasps filled the hall. A poor fisherman, now second only to the king himself? But that was not all. The king clapped his hands and the princess entered. She was radiant, dressed in coral beads that clinked like tiny bells. "You shall marry my daughter," the king declared. Tamuno's heart thudded. His eyes darted toward the river outside the palace walls. His mind went to the mermaid who had given him everything. But the king's word was law. And so, Tamuno married the princess. That night, when he went to the river, she was waiting. Her eyes searched his face. "Why didn't you come yesterday?" Tamuno's lips trembled. He could not meet her gaze. Finally he said, "The king, he gave me his daughter to marry. I could not refuse." The mermaid's smile shattered. Her beads rattled softly as she shook her head. "After all I gave you? After all the nights we shared?" Tamuno reached out. "It was not my choice." But she pulled away, her eyes brimming with tears. "You broke my heart, Tamuno. Do you know what it means to break the heart of a spirit?" Her voice rose, echoing across the water like thunder. "I am sorry," he whispered, falling to his knees by the riverbank. But it was too late. The mermaid dove beneath the waves, and the river swelled angrily, lashing at the banks. That night, the village heard her cries in the wind. From that day on, the princess's womb was shut. Months turned into years. Every morning, the women of the village brought forth babies, their cries filling the air like music. But in the palace, silence reigned. The princess wept day and night. The king grew restless. The people began to whisper. "Why does the princess not bear a child? Has the gods turned their face upon us?" 10 years passed, and still no cry of a baby was heard in the palace. Tamuno grew heavy with shame. He could not speak of the mermaid. He could not confess the truth. But in the depth of his heart, he knew. Her tears had cursed him. And the river no longer welcomed him. His nets grew light again, and though he was rich, his soul was empty. At night, when the wind howled and the waves slapped against the banks, he thought he heard her voice still crying, cursing him, reminding him of the love he had betrayed.
Please subscribe to my channel and leave a like for me. Also click on the notification bell. Watch out for part 2 of the story. I promise you do not want to miss it. Watch out and see what Tamuno is going to do next and what their fate will be.